Welcome to the inner world of filmmaking. I'm your host, Tammy McGarrow. I'm a writer, director, editor, and a podcast producer. In this show, I will interview filmmakers in all facets of production and distribution. I'm so excited to have Eric Addison, owner of 100 ACRE Films and the manager of the San Diego Premiere Pro user group, which you can find on Facebook. He is an award-winning filmmaker, producer, director, cinematographer, and editor. Welcome, Eric. So happy to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with what got you into filmmaking and owning your own company, 100 Acres. And I'd like to know how you came up with that title.
Yeah, big question. So how did I get into filmmaking? So I wasn't really good at anything else. Let's put it that way. No, I loved writing and storytelling when I was a kid, but I never really thought about, and I loved movies, obviously. I loved watching the behind the scenes stuff, but it never seemed like something that normal people, like a kid growing up in La Mesa, California, could really do. And then when I got to college, a good friend of mine from high school, his cousin was the dialogue coach on that TV show Growing Pains. And then he was directing a film and he invited me to come out to the set. And so I went out to set and spent a day there and just asked like a million questions. And my buddy's cousin was actually really cool to me. And at one point I just said, so, I was like, how does this all work? And he goes, well, we're going to shoot a master shot, which is sort of everything. And then we shoot close-ups and, and he kind of just explained it to me. I was like, that's it. That's how this works. There's nothing more. And he goes, well, there's effect shots and other stuff. But basically he goes, it's just like it's like building a puzzle. He goes, we just come out here, we build the puzzle pieces and then we put it all together in editing. Add music and sound effects and away you go. You get a movie. And I'm like, that's it? I'm like, I could totally do that. And so yeah, after that, I was an English major at San Diego State University and at the time, and I went over to the film department, the film school there in San Diego State and said, yeah, I'm in. And they're like, yeah, well, there's a million other kids that want to do this too. So you gotta petition. And so I had to bring my grades up a little bit and petition the department, and I applied, and then I got in. And so that was sort of how I got into filmmaking. And then the owning your own company thing, that's another little story that, so after I graduated film school, I went to a party up at the Universal lot. And this was, whenever I graduated, this was the summer afterwards. So I was fresh out of film school, didn't know what I was going to do. I knew I didn't want to go to LA because I hate LA. Mm-hmm. No offense to anybody that lives in LA.
Right.
So I was at this party. I met this producer who worked up in Hollywood. And the producer asked me what I was going to do now that I graduated film school. And I said I didn't know. I said I didn't want to go to LA. And so he said, you want my advice? I said, sure. I'm always one to take advice from people that are where I want to go. And so he said, my advice to you is just to go back to San Diego and, start your own company and do, he called them industrials, but now we call it corporate video. He goes, do industrial videos, commercials, whatever you can do. He goes, but start your own company and do that. He goes, and do that until you, get married, have kids, own a home, and you've got a good business, and then come up here and try to chase your Steven Spielberg dreams. And I go, why? Why do all that? And he goes, I guarantee you that 95% of the kids you graduated with won't even make it in this industry. There's a small percentage that will. Even a smaller percentage might actually get where they want to go. He goes, if you go do that, he goes, you'll have a good career. You'll be shooting, editing, writing, directing, producing. You're learning all the things that you need to do here, and you'll be making a good living doing it. He goes, most of the people that take their shot in Hollywood don't make it. He goes, if you take your shot and you don't make it, you always have a business to fall back on. You will have spent your life doing something that you love to do and own a home, raise a family, and do all that. And he goes, if you do make it and you make your film and you become the next Spielberg, he goes, even better for you. You've done it all. He goes, but that's my advice to you. And I said, wow, okay. And I kind of put that in the back of my head. And then I worked at a production company out of school, got laid off, and then decided in my early 30s, well, now's the time to do this. And I started the production company. So that's how the production company started, working for myself. The production company name, as anybody who has kids or grew up, in the 70s or 80s, probably, I loved Winnie the Pooh as a kid. So the 100 Acres comes from Winnie the Pooh, the 100 Acre Wood. It's where Christopher Robin went to have all of his adventures, where imagination can sort of amaze, you can go and have all these great adventures. And so 100 Acre Films kind of came out of that.
I love it.
So that's my story.
Yeah, I like that. I didn't know that. I read Winnie the Pooh too, but I didn't realize that. So that's really cool.
I get asked that. That is the first question that I get asked like all the time with new clients. Like, where did you get the name? And I always kind of joke. It's like, well, it's probably where you think it came from. Because as soon as I say Winnie the Pooh, it's like, I thought that's where it was from. It's like, yeah. Well.
How did you, just on a side note, how did you start getting your clients, your corporate clients?
That's a good question. So when I went out on my own, my strategy was I having grown up here, having gone to film school here, I knew a few people in the industry. But I didn't know, really what I was going to do or how to kind of get anywhere. And so instead of sort of like hitting the ground running, like I'm a production company, hire the production company, I freelanced for a few years. I had to set up a company to sort of freelance under. And so, that name came, applied there. But I freelanced for a lot of different people here in town. And that got me in with a few people. I would show up and shoot, or I would edit, and I made sort of connections that way through other people. And then ultimately what happened was it's as most people's lives are, it's just one of those weird random kind of like, this connects to that kind of thing. I was the place that I got laid off from about a year before I got laid off. Somebody had called me and said, hey, Qualcomm is hiring to hire a video production team member. But it's only a 6-month gig. And I was at a job that I didn't really like. And so I said, but it's only 6 months. I'm not going to take it. So I didn't even apply for it. And then about 3 days later, I was talking to somebody else in the building that I worked in who worked for a different business. And he goes, I think my last day is going to be, like next week. I said, oh, why? He goes, I got a job at Qualcomm. It's a 6-month gig, but I think I can turn it into something longer. And I'm like, oh, wow, good luck to you. And I really didn't think it would last more than 6 months. Well, it did. He's still, as far as I know, he still works there.
Wow.
But the point of it is he got in. And so when I got laid off, I was good friends with him still. And when he found out that I was unemployed and, trying to find work, he said, hey, we have a bunch of stuff that needs to get shot here. Would you be willing to come out and shoot it? And I said, yeah, absolutely. The pay sucked, to be honest with you. But I was working and I got in there, and then that kind of led to a little bit more work and led to a little bit more work. And eventually there was one day where I was doing camera for an event there. They showed a video that a local production company, who I won't mention, had produced for them. And I didn't think the video was that good. And so I went to the meeting coordinator, who I knew just because I'd shot a bunch of stuff for them. And I said, hey, I was giving her the tapes from that we'd recorded and all this kind of stuff. And I said, what did you think of the video that they showed during the meeting? And she goes, I thought it was okay. She goes, what did you think? And I said, as long as you're happy, that's good. And, and she kind of laughed and said, oh, she goes, you didn't like it? And I said, no, I think it could have been better in this way. And I kind of, and I didn't just like say I didn't like it. I actually gave criticism for it. I said, I thought this could have been better. I didn't like this. And I felt this was a little too whatever. And she goes, you know what? That's all kind of interesting feedback. I hadn't thought about those things. And so she said, well, what would you have done things a little bit differently and done it those? And I was like, oh yeah, totally. And so that kind of planted a seed. And so I went up to her later and said, hey, I would really love a chance to bid on one of your video projects. I said, I'm not asking you for the job. I'm just asking to be able to quote on it, next time you have something like that. And so she said, okay, that sounds fine. And so she called me, or no, she didn't. I didn't hear from her for a while. She called me to do a tape transfer. This was back in the tape days. And so I did the transfer for free. And when I was dropping it off, she said, invoice me for the cost to do the transfer. And I said, you know what? It's free. I just want a chance to quote on a project for you. And that did it. And then about 3 weeks later, I got a call and she said, can you quote on this? She gave me the project details. I quoted on it. And I got the gig, and that was for Qualcomm, and that was it. That was sort of my first my first real corporate job on my own. And after that, I just started. I did a good enough job on that. I look at the video now and cringe, by the way. But
right, we all do.
Yeah, but that opened this door to all these other people. Started calling me. Oh, I saw the work you did for this person. Can you do that for me? We need a video. Can you do this for us? And then the thing that I didn't really sort of plan on happening was that, people don't stay at their jobs. They go to other companies. And so as people would go to other companies, they would bring me with them. And so word just kind of got around. Former Qualcomm people would end up over at this company, that company, this company, and they would all call me to do work for them. And then they would sort of, tell their friends at the new company, oh yeah, hire this guy. He does good work, whatever. And so honestly, that was sort of how it worked for me. My wife always jokes, and my tax guy always kind of laughs, that my marketing budget for tax time is like nothing.
Wow.
I don't do a big, I do a lot of social media stuff, but I don't have like a big marketing push or marketing budget. Like I literally spend less than $100 a year on marketing, and that's usually making up t-shirts to give crew members. I just don't do that. And a large part of that is just because I have been sort of blessed to have that. I got that start with just did good work, and the word spread, and word of mouth is, in my estimation, like the greatest, thing you can have. It goes much further than a great website, a great demo reel, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's good to have those things, don't get me wrong, but people will always listen to someone's personal recommendation from someone they trust over, something flashy and fancy.
I totally agree. And I was just thinking about that. It's just really about networking and who you know. They will take somebody's advice from somebody that they know versus even looking at your reel.
Yeah, I've been hired, and I know people didn't really check out my stuff. They just hired me because this person said I was good, and and that's fine. That makes me feel good. It's probably, it makes me sort of lax sometimes on updating my website and doing all the things that you're supposed to do.
Right.
Like updating the reel and all that kind of stuff. But, my attitude has always been that if you're busy, and the phone keeps ringing, then you're doing something right. And that's the most important thing.
I'm assuming that you kind of grew from a one-man band to, do you have employees or do you just hire out?
I hire out. Production is completely, every job is different. Some jobs require a makeup artist, teleprompter, sound person, gaffer, grip, catering, the whole thing, because it's a big job. Other shoots are just, all you need is someone to show up with a camera and film somebody. And so for me, at least, and having looked at the market of San Diego over, as many years as I've been doing this, it sounds really bad, and I don't mean it to sound this way, sound bad, but whenever I hear about a production company going under or closing up shop, I always try to call and ask the owner or whoever is, in charge out to lunch and find out okay, what happened?
Right.
What did you do wrong? Where did things not good? Because at one point you had 10 employees, a big building, and you were shooting, Lexus commercials, for big agencies, and now you're kaput. What happened? And so but one common thing that I've noticed is that, you have to sort of stay nimble. And I think sometimes production companies just get too big. They hire too many employees. They have too big a staff. And, when you're not shooting every day,
right.
Why do you need a camera person on staff? Why do you need this person on staff? Whatever. So for me, it's just being able to sort of outsource that and develop those relationships. So the people that I've worked with for 10 or 15 years or more.
Right.
And so it's that I build up that crew, I build up that trust, and then I can call on these people and build, up the crew that's right for the job, as opposed to just having an in-house staff that I have to support.
Yeah. You have to think about that. And I was just going to ask, what did you learn? But thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's important. Now, do you edit the majority of your work, or do you outsource that?
I would say I edit probably 90% of what I do. Times that I will outsource editing is when I realize that a project is I'm not the best fit for that project. We did a project about a year or two ago that it needed to have a lot of flash, a lot of pizzazz, a lot of energy, a completely different style that I'm used to cutting. And so I got a good friend of mine to come on board to cut that. There have been other times where, when my kids were born, for example, I was swamped. And so I had some other folks kind of jump in and help on editing then. But it's usually sort of I don't have a good comfort level with this project because it needs something that I don't have, a skill set that I don't have as an editor. I think that's one thing editors need to sort of realize about themselves. I think there's always a need to push yourself and to try things. and to try to, see how far you can expand your style and your skill set. But I think there also at the same time needs to be some sort of realization of like, I know what I'm good at. I know where my comfort level is. I know what I can do best and what I'm really not good at. And when those projects come through the door that your skill set isn't as strong in, get someone who is better than you and have them do it. Because ultimately the client will be happier because it'll be a better product. And they're more likely obviously to come back, but also you don't end up banging your head against the wall, trying to fit yourself into something that you're just not really cut out for.
No, I totally agree. And there's just so many different styles that it's hard to keep up. And also, as you get older, it's like, I don't want to do that.
No, you're totally right about that. Yeah. I think we all kind of reach a point when you're 20, it's like, yeah, I'll edit anything that walks through that door. It's like, I just want to do it. But when you get a little older, it's like, I'm going to send that over to this guy,
right.
Or this girl. She's better than me at this. So I'll let her do it,
Yeah. No, I think it's great. On today's show, I really wanted to focus on organizing files for the editor when on set. There's a position called the DIT, Digital Imaging Technician. And I see that more on probably feature films, but I think even short films should have them too. Could you tell me a little bit about what a DIT does and why it's important to have one?
So, I think a DIT handles a lot of different things. Usually, like on big features, they're going to work closely with the camera department. Helping the cameras get, color balancing right, developing LUTs for, working with the DP to get LUTs developed so that, when it gets into editorial, there's sort of and for color grading, there's sort of the DP and the DIT have sort of come up with a look that the DP is looking for and the director is looking for. So that's one aspect to it. The other aspect to it is sort of the data wrangling and management side of things, getting the cards as we move, into more digital stuff, getting the cards from the camera, getting them ingested, getting them backed up on hard drives, getting things maybe sometimes sunk up with the audio and taking care of a lot of that stuff on set. I think if you're doing a short film, having a DIT, obviously if you're doing a feature and you're shooting on an Alexa, a DIT is going to be sort of, or any kind of digital camera, it's going to be a must. If you're on a short film or like, a corporate project or commercial project, I think having a DIT is probably a little bit of overkill in the one regard of like working with the camera op or the DP and developing the LUTs and all that kind of stuff, working on the look of it. But from a data wrangling standpoint, yes, it's if you can get someone on set to handle all that, to get your footage off the cards, get it onto hard drives, get it organized into a way that the either editor or assistant editor that's going to take that footage and start getting it prepped for edit is a really good thing to have. I always tell filmmakers whenever it's a project I'm working on, it's like, look, if I want to speak to who's ever handling the footage, be it the DP. If you don't have a DIT, then it's probably going to be the DP who's offloading the footage. I want to talk to them about a whole host of things. But in regards to that stuff, it's like, yeah, here's how I want the footage broken out. Here's how I want it. I want it separated in folders. I want some organizational system that we're all on the same page with. Because if you don't set up that system early on, it can easily just become a mess. And on a short film, or any kind of large project, if there's not that system and you've just got folders with footage in it and nothing's really labeled, and God forbid if they don't use a slate, as an editor, you're going to just be screaming at somebody and you're going to ask for more money.
Right. Yeah. Or hope you'll get more money because it just takes so much longer.
Yeah.
That's why I think a DIT is so important on set, is because if they can organize it and maybe even put it on the timeline and sync up the audio, that's less time for the editor to have to do anything.
Yes, absolutely.
Then they can get into what they need to do.
Yeah.
And focus. I feel like this should be talked about in the pre-production meeting.
Oh, well, yeah.
And maybe bringing in an editor. So could you talk about when should you bring in the editor to the meeting, and what are some of the things that need to be discussed?
I think before you start,
so everybody's on the same page.
Yeah. I mean, before you start any project, you should have a series of meetings, depending upon what the project is. So let's just keep it in the short film world, because that's, I think this applies more to that than it does sort of the corporate commercial side of things. That's a little bit different.
Right.
But like in a short film world, if you're the producer and director, you need to have multiple meetings. But one of those meetings should be with the DP, the editor. If you have a post-production supervisor, if you're that big, that person should be there, and if you have an assistant editor and a DIT, they need to be there. And you all just need to sort of sit around a table and go, okay, what are we shooting on? Sometimes I say start at the end. What do you need deliverable wise? Are we delivering a 4K video? Are we delivering an HD file? We're delivering an 8K file. What are we? What's our deliverable? And then you sort of work backwards from that. So, okay, we want to deliver a 4K DCP. Okay, great. So now we're editing at 4K. So what are we shooting at? Okay, we're shooting on a ARRI Alexa at 4K. Okay, perfect. You shooting RAW? You shooting ARRI RAW? You shooting log? What do you And you just sort of work through those things, because as an editor, the DP and the editor need to sort of have that conversation, because they need to be able to make sure that they're on the same page, that they can each kind of work with what the other's giving them or getting. But that's at the same time, you're going to develop that system. It's up to the editor to sort of say, hey, here's how I like to have my stuff organized. I like to have day one, card one, card two, card three broken out, or, whatever. Come up with some sort of system that works for you. And then have the DP and the DIT guy. Okay, we can do that. Do you want the files to be named any certain special way? Yes. And I forgot to mention too, having the audio person there would probably be a good person to have as well, because then you can kind of talk to them. Here's how I want the audio files labeled. That make sure that you're recording at this sample rate or whatever. Everything just needs to be hashed out in that meeting, so that everybody walks out of there and the DP knows he's shooting at 2398 in ARRI RAW. The editor knows he's going to get ARRI RAW footage, at 4K, whatever. The folders it's going to come on hard drives in this sort of file structure. The DIT is going to create those file structures and do all that, sync up the audio that's going to have these kind of file names. So if the editor, you just work all of that stuff out. And so that everybody's on the same page. And then, once you do that, chaos will still ensue, but it'll be much more managed chaos. And at least you have that sign off on, okay, we're all going to try to do this way.
Well, and I think that's good for any up and coming editor to know that because a lot of times with short films, they're not paying you anything or very little, and they don't have pre-production meetings.
Right.
At all, or they don't include you in them.
Yeah. Well, and and that's something that I think, excuse the expression, that divides the men from the boys. It's like, if you are serious about making films, be a serious filmmaker. Take this serious. I mean, if you want to go just make backyard films with your friends and you're not serious about it, then fine. Do, make your films however you want to make them, and they'll turn out however they turn out, good, bad, or whatever. But if you are like, look, I want to be Christopher Nolan someday, I'm a director and I want to be, then you know what? Start acting that way. Treat your film seriously, because I think that filters down to your crew. If you come across professional, if you treat it like a professional production and say, look, we're going to have meetings, whatever. And I understand not everybody might be on board with that or whatever, but it does sort of, that air and that sort of feeling kind of, comes from the top and goes down. And so if you kind of set that tone, like, look, I realize I'm not paying you much or at all for my passion project, but I am going to treat this like a professional production as much as I possibly can. And part of that is, let's meet, let's talk about this, let's get all this stuff hashed out so that we can have the best product at the end, the best film we can do at the end of the day. And you kind of have to just push for that and sort of say, look, we're going to have these conversations. And if people aren't, like, look, man, I ain't got time for that or whatever, then you know what? I would question whether you want that person on your crew.
Right.
Because especially if it's somebody, if it's a passion project where you're not paying anybody anything or very little, when push comes to shove and something, and let's face it, you've worked on films, something will go wrong. Do you want that person who's sort of apathetic about the whole thing to be on set that day and be the person that has to sort of solve your problem? Because if they don't really care about it at the front end, when it gets really tough, that sometimes can be the person that's just like, oh man, that sucks, I'm out of here, and then you're screwed. So
right, yeah.
So I think you're right, and that it's hard to sort of do that, but you have to, as much as you can, you have to sort of push for those things and be that serious filmmaker. This is not an easy business. It's a hard one, and so it takes a lot of persistence and a lot of drive to get there, and to do it. And so just be that person. Don't be a jerk. Don't get me wrong. Be nice about stuff.
No, but I think that that's a great point to make, is be the person you want to become and start your high level there. And it doesn't matter what other people are doing, just you keep in integrity of that.
Yes.
And sometimes it's just figuring out what's the right questions to ask. And I thought you had some good points about start at the end and then move your way backwards. And if they're not going to have a pre-production meeting, editor, please talk to your director or producer and say, can you connect me with the DP? Can you connect me with the sound person? I'll go make my meetings with them solo.
Yep. No, absolutely. Yeah. If you're not getting that from the director or the producer on the project, what you said is absolutely right. You make the call. You be the professional one, and make that phone call. Say, hey, I need to talk to them. So can you give me their number or their email, and I'll take care of it on my own.
Right. Yeah. So let's kind of like drill down now, because I've noticed on set, I've done DIT, I'm an editor and also have directed too. So I know all facets of production here. And I was looking at, it's interesting with the sound. I've had different sound mixers on set and everybody labels it differently. But what I like is when they label by scene number and take. There's that. I've had some that just go 001, 002. That's, I think you got to.
Makes you want to scream.
Yes, because now you're relying on the slate
Yep.
to figure out which ones are which. So, and the second thing about the naming the files is the level that they go. Boom, love 1, 2, 3. Or another person I worked with said, no, I put the mix last, the boom, and then the lavs first. So do you have any thoughts about sound files and labeling and order?
So I think that comes down to just sort of personal preference. I know on naming conventions, I like to have scene and take without a doubt, and date if possible, because sometimes you go back and do reshoots. So if they can slip the date in there, that's good too. I do like to have things broken out into, boom and lav, just so I can play with those separately. I have gotten audio files that are like everything is meshed into one file. And so like the boom is on one track, whatever. And then, so I have to go in and kind of break it up. But sometimes if you can get them separated into separate files, that works. I like that as well. But I really think it's sort of just whatever is easiest for you. I mean, when you're asking a question like that, it's really sort of how do you like to work? Where are you going to most likely pull your sound from? And to be honest, too, another question to consider too is sort of like, okay, well, I mean, yeah, you're building the basic audio that somebody's going to then go sweeten. But sometimes if you have an audio mixer or not audio mixer, a sound designer who's going to come on at some point, that's someone else you want in the conversation.
Oh, yeah.
How do they want the files labeled? How do they want things? Because they're going to be doing a fair amount of work with all these same things as well. So sometimes as an editor, you've got to sort of make a compromise level with, that sound designer and say, hey, how do you like to have things set up? What can I do to sort of help your job at the end, when you're doing the mix on all this? And, and so they might say, well, be sure you have it broken out this way. I don't want files that are like this. And so there's that conversation. So sometimes you have to sort of compromise on what they're going to want as well. But by and large, if you're doing, if it's a small short film and you're just doing, as the editor, you're going to be doing the kind of the sound mix at the end. I think it's however you like to have things set up. And I think you have to sort of figure out what's easiest for you and what works for you, and then do that on a regular basis and be consistent with it.
Right. But I liked what you said about bringing in the sound designer if you have one, because, sometimes you're editing and how many tracks can be in,
oh yeah,
especially if you have a bunch of people. And so sometimes you just want to delete them because it just gets so convoluted. So, and talking to a sound mixer, they may say, no, I want all the tracks because I want to be able to adjust, because sometimes you can pick the wrong one.
Yep.
You find out later, it's like, oops,
oh yeah,
I needed that. And now guess what? You have to resync. Well, if you get an assembly edit, then you can always just go back, but still you got to re-edit what you edited.
Yeah, yes, I can say from experience, yes, that sucks. And yeah, you don't want to ever, the way that I lay out stuff, we can maybe talk about this later, but like how my system for working, like, it makes things a little bit easier when I have to go find, when the sound designer says, hey, you use the boom in this take, but I listen to the raw files, the lav sounds way better. Can you just pull that audio for me? I go, yeah, I totally can, because the way that I've laid out all the takes, it's easy for me to go back and find that lob and find just what he's looking for, and then just pull it and then be able to send it to him. And then he's able to resync, or he or she is able to resync it back up. But yeah, that's a lot of that comes from just having made mistakes and then developing a system that sort of, tries to, help you when that situation does arrive. But you're absolutely right. You have to sort of prepare, and give your sound person, just like your colorist doesn't quite work the same way. But yeah, your sound person, if you've got multiple audio tracks, he or she might want something that's, that you didn't use, and they're probably right to use them. They know better than you. That's why they're an audio expert.
Right. And also maybe even going a step further and saying, what program do you sound design? Because you might want to, if they're sound designing in Adobe, the mixer in there, then you might be like, well, maybe I should edit it in Adobe and make it very easy, versus if somebody's doing DaVinci Resolve and they're mixing there or coloring there, then those are some choices you might think about.
Yeah. I mean, again, conversations that need to happen at the beginning. If your audio, talk to your audio person and say, hey, what do you mix in? And they're either, most likely, most audio people are going to do their stuff in Pro Tools. And so it's like, okay, well, I'm cutting in Premiere. So what do you need from me at the end? And it's either going to be like an OMF file or an AAF file, and then there's a whole list of choices that kind of break out. Do you need stems? Do you need it broken out into, again, conversations that you need to have with them, before you really start editing, so that you can sort of prepare for that. It's same with the colorist. I have a colorist that I work with who works he lives in Oregon, and he does a lot of work up in Hollywood. He grades in Resolve. And so we've developed a workflow between me editing in Premiere and him coloring in Resolve, to where I can get him the project. And occasionally we hit speed bumps. There are certain things, but we've ironed it out now to where I know exactly what to give him to make it as smooth as possible. But that's through having those conversations, sending him test projects, talking to him. I mean, he knows Premiere a little bit, and so he knows enough to sort of be able, and he actually has Premiere. So there have been a couple times where Resolve was wonky in opening up the project, the XML file. And so he was able to just open it up in Premiere, tweak some stuff, and then from there, move it over into Resolve.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I mean, just communication is key, and maybe grabbing a couple of tips that we've just talked about to really think about asking. Because I think sometimes people don't know, they just get hired on, and then that's as far as it goes. And then they don't even think to ask the questions about the output, like you said.
Yeah.
Another thing I think about is like, when you're on set and the sound mixer's mixing, especially on short films, I don't hear any communication to the sound mixer, to anybody telling them what the channels are. What are they using? Should that be given to the script supervisor, or should the sound mixer have a little layout and say, here are all the audio files, the boom, the mix, that, so
So on all the productions that I've worked with, the sound mixer has always provided that at the end of the day. So the sound mixer will provide, and a lot of times that's a conversation that they might have. I up until recently, I've worked with the same sound guy on just about everything, and he's recently kind of semi-retired or fully retired now. But I sort of let Frank kind of just handle it, and Frank just did it, and it was great. But yeah, those are kind of conversations that a lot of sound people want to have. Like, hey, is there a particular way you want the audio laid out? And I usually kind of go, whatever's fine. Just let me know what you're doing, and I can work with that. But yeah, most audio folks that I've worked with have always that's been something. At the end of the day, they hand you a card, and they hand you a sheet of paper that sort of has the takes, the file names, maybe how things were laid out, and just kind of, like a little sound report, basically. And then I can take that with me when I go into editing. And if anything gets wonky, I can always go back to that sound report and go, oh yeah, okay, here it is. That's where this is. Especially if so I've worked with a few sound guys who will actually do some Foley on set while we're, the last short film I did, there were a few times where we were setting up for a different scene, and Frank, my sound guy, would say, hey, I want to get just the character's feet walking. The ambience, in this house is perfect, and we're not going to be able to really recreate that anywhere. So I want to get the character just walking, to get his shoe steps, or to get this sound or that sound. And so, yeah, while we were setting up outside for the next shot, Frank would be inside recording the main character walking through the living room or doing this action or doing whatever. And then I would have notes on my sound report, what those were called. And he would label the files usually, sound effect or Foley. I forget what he called them. But I would have that and I could just sort of reference it when I was editing. It's like, oh, yeah, where's those footsteps again? And I could go in and, find that sound file real quick and add that in.
I'm glad that you brought that up. I had Cora Linda on the podcast in the past, and she was talking about that when she does her films, like if somebody, just like you were saying, like if there's a scene where somebody opens up a refrigerator, closes it, the walking, she says, we do one take, no dialogue, and they just run through the scene. And I just think sometimes we don't think about that on set or and I get it, as you're directing something, there's a lot of pressure and you're just trying to get, the show going and stuff. And sometimes you just forget about those things. So I would say to, sound mixers out there, think about those. And room tone. Do you know how many times room tone is not done? That should be the first thing you do. Before we start, we're going to do room tone.
Yeah.
But don't you think that's the sound mixer's?
That is the sound mixer's job. It's his his or her responsibility to get that. And, it's their job to do those things. I mean, yeah. However, I think the thing to keep in mind is, if you're doing a feature film, if you're working in Hollywood, let's put it that way. If you're shooting an indie feature film, this is a little bit different. But if you're shooting a Hollywood feature, there's a 99% chance you're going to be going to a Foley artist and have them do all those sound effects, and do all that for you. If you're shooting an indie feature or a short film, most likely you don't have budget for Foley. So yeah, however your sound person wants to get all that, whatever makes them most comfortable, or yes, absolutely do that, because it's going to be really hard to try to do that later. When you're editing, and it sucks when you hand off your film to your sound designer and he goes, "Where's, do you have sounds for this, this, and this?" And you're like, I don't know. Isn't it in the track there? No, or it's not usable, whatever. And so now they have to go try to recreate that sound, and it's more work for them. And if they're not working for free, you just added to your budget. That extra 20 minutes you could have spent on set recording, getting those sounds. Now is going to cost you a ton of money, because this person's going to have to go off and create those sounds.
Yeah. And another one on that I've noticed too, I try really hard not to do this, but when directors talk through a scene, okay, now come, enter. Jackie, you enter from this side. Do you know, like, great, now you can't use the ambiance because you've just talked over it. And especially if there's other things going on, you just can't recreate. So I would highly recommend to directors block out the scene and get the timing.
Yeah.
So that they just know when to go. So you're not having to direct them.
I mean, having directed, there's times where you're going to have to do that. But, if you know that ADR, is not in your budget, then you need to be cognizant of that and have room tone, like you said,
right, so
that you can fill in over those things, those spots, and B, make sure that the screen direction that you're giving isn't happening over any dialogue or over any sort of critical action that's happening, that's requiring the sound, on-set sound. So, I think it's one thing if you kind of want to just say, okay, and action, okay, start walking, or something like that, being kind of quiet and giving direction, as much as you can. But when they're in a heated scene or there's something happening or whatever, you got to realize if you're talking over that, you've just ruined the sound.
Yep.
And so, yeah, there is, you do have to be cognizant of that. If you're doing a short film or an indie feature, odds are you're not going to be able to fix that in post. And I don't want to hear any director on set just say, "Oh, we'll fix it in post." No, you'll fix it now.
Yeah. Or let's try one without, any cues.
Yes. Yeah.
So do you think that, I love that your sound mixer gives a report. I'm just curious how he does that while he's doing sound. Is he got a sheet by him just writing in everything? Wow.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Yes.
I've never seen that done on any of the films I've
really?
done. I would love it if people, I'm surprised sometimes isn't that something that they should be doing, or at least giving you what the tracks are?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't see that. Do you think that maybe on a short film where, that may or may not happen, that maybe if you have a script supervisor, they should be asking that, maybe just something to think about, asking for the channels?
I mean, I guess you could. I mean, if you wanted to give the script supervisor that responsibility and have them kind of work with them, then yeah, that would be something you do. I mean, let's face it, if you're on a short film passion project kind of thing, having a script supervisor is like a complete luxury,
right?
I mean, for most of the films that I've worked on, it's like I'm the director, producer, script supervisor, catering person, da 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 da. So it's like, somebody to worry about script supervision. It's like, oh man, this is luxury. So, but yeah, I mean, to me, I would rather, I think, have the script supervisor, especially on a low budget kind of thing, focused on their job of, getting Polaroids, making sure that things are matching, nothing's going to be, keeping the continuity, in check. The audio person, should be handling everything audio. And that conversation between director, editor, producer and post supervisor, if you have something like that, or audio, sound designer, and that I should mention too. That's another conversation that should happen. Who's ever doing on set recording should talk to your sound designer, and that conversation should definitely happen at some point, just so they can make sure they're on the same page and we're getting everything that they need.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the slate. You got your first or second AC doing the slate. I was told that the slate should really be before the camera starts rolling. You should have it. That's the first frame that the camera is going to pick up, so the editor can just see the slate.
Yeah, no, that is true, because in most NLEs, the thumbnail that it will usually be the first frame of whatever it is, and so if you can just have that up, then that makes things a lot easier once you start editing and you get into post. It really. Again, it's sort of an editorial thing. If it's, that doesn't always happen, when you're on set, but if you can do that and get that, then it makes the editor's job a lot easier. The most important thing I would say is just make sure you have a slate and make sure it's labeled. And you'd think it's a no brainer, like, well, duh, of course you would have a slate, but you'd be surprised how many other editors I've talked to who've worked on films without a slate, or with a slate that has minimal information on it. Sometimes just like a blank slate, and you're like, seriously, who thought that putting up a blank slate is like, it's like, okay, yeah, it's great for syncing audio, but I have no scene information on this. I don't know what I'm even looking at. And so, but yeah, the slate is, from an editing standpoint, it is a absolute must.
So let's talk about what should be on a slate. What's the most important things for an editor?
Scene number, obviously take number, and then and whatever sort of scene, everybody kind of has their own system. I have my own really goofball system. I will confess, it's my own goofball system that I developed in film school for scene numbering. I know there's a better, more accepted Hollywood tradition for how to label stuff, but the stuff that when I'm editing my own stuff that I'm shooting, I have my own thing that works in my own head, and it's like, okay, I want it labeled this way. And when I show up to set, I have all the shots broken out and labeled on sheets. So it's like I can hand off the sheet to who's ever, going to be doing the slate, and sort of say, okay, look, here are all the shots we're doing today. Here's what they need to be called. And here's the method to my sort of madness, so that if we change course at some point, you can sort of come see how I do this and sort of go with that flow.
What is it?
So usually for me, everything starts off with, if I'm shooting, so we'll take a normal scene that's like a master shot, a couple close-ups, and then maybe some mid shots, or over the shoulder shots. So my master shot will always be, we'll say it's scene 2. So my master shot will always be 2A. That's my master. The close-ups will be usually like 2. Well, it depends on the order that I want to do it in. So I'll usually do the close-ups before the mid shots, just because people are a little bit more fresh. That'll be 2B. Both angles. So it'll be 2BA, or actually, no, I take it back. 2B-1, 2B-2, and then the mid shots will be 2C-1, 2C-2. So I kind of break it up that way. So that, it's sort of A, B, C, and then I know the 1 and the 2, the 1 and the 2. And then we kind of just go from there. Just kind of, I kind of keep that same system. If we're going to shoot one angle, it's going to be 1. So the angle is going to be 2. So I want to have that on there. I want to have the date, and then whether we were recording with sound or not. If it's MOS, I need to know that. If there's sound to go with it.
Now, do you want card? Like, I know that sometimes people will put the card number, and then sometimes people will add audio. Now, if the audio is labeled by the scene, then that I don't know that needs to be on the slate. but do you need like card 001? Then when you switch a card or,
So
A001 beat.
yeah. So if there's on the slate for where it says roll, I'll usually put, like 1, 2, 3 to let me know what card we're on for that day. Audio, interestingly enough, Frank Forth, who always has done my audio, he will call out on the audio take itself what it is. So when I'm in post or when I'm in editing, when I play back scene 2A-1, it'll be, the first thing I'll hear when I play the audio file will be scene 2A, -1, take 1. You'll usually hear, okay, roll set, roll camera, add action. My audio person is actually calling it out on each take, saying it so that I know that it's there. I realize, Frank is a diehard audio professional, so that's the kind of stuff he does. Not every audio person is going to be doing that kind of stuff. So when you don't have that, again, as long as the audio is the first thing to roll, so that you can hear that slate, get called out on the audio. You want to make sure that at least you have that. If the audio person is not saying it or announcing it.
So then he says it, then you roll camera, then audio, he says it, and then the slate says it again to kind of confirm it.
So yeah. So I'll say, okay, roll sound. Frank will say, speeding, scene A, I can hear him over there saying, scene A, 2A, take 1, and then I'll go, okay, roll camera, speeding, then the slate will usually say it again, 2A, take 1, and then step out. So I have it on Frank's end, crystal clear, but for whatever reason, the boom is over somewhere else, because, so say talent's over on the other side of the room, and that's where the boom is. I can faintly hear it off access from the boom, but I have Frank recording directly on the track itself. And then I can see it on camera. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant. And that's why I'm hoping that these podcasts help people to think about their shoots in a different way and to maybe in the back of their head go, you know what? I should do that.
Audio seems to be the thing that, people will spend a boatload of cash on buying a red camera. They won't know how to really use it all the time, but they'll spend a boatload of cash buying a red camera.
Right.
And then when they go out to shoot their film, they'll have their red camera and they'll get their great lens package that they rented from somebody. Okay. Oh yeah. Can you hold the boom? And can you just, do this? And it's like audio just becomes like this secondary thing that a lot of people just sort of shortchange. And I will tell you that like audio makes such a difference, and you want to get somebody that knows what they're doing and that can do it really well. Don't give audio to the person that just volunteered to be on set that day and who's never done audio in their life before, because your audio most likely is going to suck.
Right.
Having that person, finding somebody that takes it seriously, that can really, deliver for you, will make all the difference in the world with your film.
Yes. Yeah. I got an audio from someone I thought was supposed to be good, not on my film, thank God. I think what she did was she turned up the gain thinking it was the headset because it was peaking. All the audio was peaking. And I was kind of wondering why she didn't notice that. I think it was a she. But yeah, that was really bad. So you kind of got to remember where your buttons are because that can happen.
Yes, it's good to know what each of the buttons do. So,
right,
it's, and I will say too, as a director, if you're doing a short film and let's just say you're editing the film that you're directing, go over and listen to the sound every once in a while. If you can get a headset, first of all, if you're an audio person big enough to where they've got, headsets that you can wear that's coming off of their mixer and their recorder, then that's great to have. But if you don't have that all the time, go over sometimes and listen to what they're recording, and just, if for no other reason than you just want to hear back that it's recording and it sounds really good, that it's not distorting, it's not peaking,
right?
There's not some sort of hum in the sound, especially if you're working with somebody who's not really that audio savvy. You kind of want to double check all that stuff to make sure that it's really good.
Yeah.
In the same way you would watch a take back.
Right.
No,
yeah. It's all those things that you just sometimes don't think about on set, like room tone. I just think about that. I never am thinking about it until I'm editing going, we never got room tone. So, and when you need it, then you're just taking it off the tracks that have no dialogue and hoping that.
Hey, been there, done that. So yeah, listen, it's you and I both know, having been on sets, being on a film set is some of the most exciting, exhilarating, fun experiences you can have. It's also can be extremely stressful, chaotic, and just like nerve wracking. We can sit here today and say, well, yeah, of course you need to be doing this, that, and the other thing. But when you're out there and, they're like, somebody comes to you and says, okay, the neighbor next door is already to call the cops because our trucks are parked in front of their driveway. We're losing our light. The actor has suddenly gotten sick and now is hiding in the bathroom. We only have 5 minutes left on this location and we have to have a, and you're like, so what do you want to do? And you're like, okay. It's like, yeah, getting room tone goes right out the window.
Right.
It's like, whatever. And so, yeah, it's easy in a perfect world. But that's why I think if you get the sort of the best people that you can get that are really good and focused on whatever area they're focused on, I don't worry about room tone when I'm on set because I know I have an audio person that's going to get me room tone.
Right.
I'm not worried about is the camera white balance because I got a camera person that's going to white balance the camera, and those kind of things. And so it's part of part of filmmaking, I should say, at any level, is surrounding yourself with people and giving them jobs and hiring people that are way better than you at what they do, and and just give them focus on that one job.
Yeah.
And then you'll end up. That's not to say that you'll always end up with a better product because it's still up to you as the director and whatever. But you're more likely to have success if you have a good script and you've got good actors and you know how to tell a story to create a better film. Well,
and then you can just focus on what you need to focus on.
Exactly. I don't want to have to, as it's stressful enough. I mean, listen, if you've directed, it's stressful enough being a director on set because so much of your day is just answering questions, putting out fires. How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? I just want to have people that, they're just going to come up to me and go, hey, I want to let you know this is this, that, and the other things going on. I'm going to handle it. Don't worry. But I just want to let you know, make you aware of it. Thank you. Boom. Okay.
Right.
That kind of thing. And as I don't want my audio person asking me how to solve their problem because I will be honest with you, I suck at audio. It's always been my weakest link. And so if somebody's coming to me saying, I'm not really sure how to fix this audio problem.
Right.
Bloody hell, I don't know how to fix it either. So, what's going on?
Yes, exactly. Getting a professional crew is so important to a film project. So now let's talk about the typical organization of downloading footage on a film set. I think the system is to do day 1, card 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, and then audio day 1, day 2, day 3. Because usually the audio you're getting at the end of the day.
Yeah.
A lot of the times.
Yeah, audio usually because it's just audio, you can fill
and it's smaller. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll go through 3, 4, 5, 6 camera cards in a day. But yeah, sometimes you get one SDHC card full of audio.
Yeah. And then I guess just when you're editing, then in your project, that's where you can get, I like to do it by scene. So I just take all the video for scene 1 and audio. So it's all there. So I can just go right there and know where everything is.
Yeah. So my method for usually once I get everything into the edit system, into Premiere, what I'll do is create timelines for, I think we talked about this.
Yep.
I create timelines for everything. And so for scene 1, I'll have one timeline that's all of scene 1, all the takes, all strung out, all sunk up. And then I'll do that for every single scene in the film. And then I'll just do what I call a pancake, or well, I don't call it that. I mean, somebody came up with the term, but it's called basically a pancake timeline where you have one timeline on top of another in Premiere. And as I build the scene out, I have, scene 3 on top. I'll play through, find the bit I like from, the wide shot, drop that down into my main timeline, find the close-ups, whatever, and then I'll kind of construct it all on the timeline once I pull the elements that I like. But again, it comes back to what I was saying before, if you need that, we talked about, what if your audio says, hey, I need the lav, you use the boom, I want the lav. All I have to do is go back and I can find where that lav clip is. I can pull just that sound and then, cut it out and send it to them. But yeah, for me, that method has just worked, it works so well for me. Just being able to sort of skim through, watch all the takes really fast, kind of see what's there. And then after I do that, just being able to sort of drag stuff down onto a new timeline, the bits, the parts that I like, and then assemble it all on that new timeline.
Yeah, I definitely like that too. I just have a problem with I forget which timeline I'm working in, and I start cutting it, and then I'm like, oh, that's your assembly. Don't do that. Like,
I generally will only have, when I'm building out, let's say, when you're building that first assembly cut, I'll only have 2 timelines open.
oh, good.
I'll have the scene that I'm working on and then the main timeline that I'm dragging down to. That's it.
Yeah.
Because you're right. It gets real easy to get confused. And you're like, I will tell you, the last film that I did, there was at one point where I had like 4 or 5, tabs open or sequences up on top because I was trying to pull from different things to build something. And I got confused at one point, and I'm like, wait, where am I? What this is, and I realized I was in the complete wrong sequence for what I was looking for, and I just kind of screwed something up. And so, it's just like, keep it simple, work, focus.
Right. Yeah.
And
then when you're doing a timeline and you're assembling it out, do you duplicate it every day so that you could at least go back? Or what's your thoughts on that?
There's a lot of editors who do that. I mean, that's funny. I always love talking to other editors who have different ways of doing things. So I know folks that create a new project every single day that they work. So they create a new project file, and they'll date it. So, short film, Monday, and then whatever the date is. Then when they come back to the office on Tuesday, they open it up, they'll save it as, short film Tuesday, whatever. And so they've got all these project files, and I guess the thinking.
Why?
The thinking is that if something gets corrupted, you can always go back, But my attitude is that I'm a longtime Premiere user. I love Premiere, but I also realize that Premiere can be crash prone every once in a while. So I've got the autosave set to like every 5 minutes. So I'm constantly creating those autosaves. And as well as that, I back up everything I use the Creative Cloud backup option. So every time I save, it's saving my project file to the cloud. And I also have just this muscle memory of edit, make this change, play back. That looks good. Control S. Okay, now we'll move on to the next thing. So I've done all this work and I save, and then I move on. So I tend to just work with one project file the whole time. I don't create multiple project files. I have all those autosaves that are in the cloud. I have and I have the main project file that's saved up in the cloud and other places. But what I do is I'll build like a full edit. So I'll get to the point where it's like, okay, this is edit 3 of the film. It's all done. And that might take a week to do, let's say. And then at the end, so then Friday I'll look at it, and kind of go, okay, I'll think about it this week, or the weekend, and then I'll come back to it Monday. So Monday when I come in, I'll watch it again and I'll be like, okay, here's what needs to change. So what I do then is go in, I duplicate the timeline. So I, right click, duplicate, and I create edit 4 timeline. And so then it's basically starts off as just a copy of edit 3, and then I start changing it. So I always have edit 3, edit 2, edit 1 living somewhere, so that when I get to edit 8 and I go, you know what? I think I did an edit 2 was pretty awesome. I can just open up edit 2, copy, paste, boom, it's done.
And that has definitely happened to me. I had a fight scene, which I don't do like action adventure, and I did a fight scene and then I overthought it. Luckily, I duplicated the timeline and did it a different way. And then I had the director look and he goes, I don't really like it. And then I realized, wait a minute, I did a different version. He's like, yeah, I like that one much better. So that's kind of what I think is like every time, you do your first total edit, then duplicate, and now start doing tweaks, and then maybe duplicate it.
Yeah, that is the big, and I do that for all the projects I do. Corporate projects, commercials, whatever it is that I'm working on professionally, that is just sort of the way that I work. You finish an edit, duplicate that timeline, that becomes the next version of it. And because like I said, it's at some point you might want to go back and be able to pull from that, and having that there, is just, it saves so much time.
Yeah. So to close, any recommendations you would want to say to fellow filmmakers when they're on set and, communicating to the editor?
That's a good question. The thing that I would say is, if I'm putting on my editor hat, make sure that you slate everything. Don't just think, oh, we're just going to get this little insert shot and, we'll figure it out. I'll let the editor know what it is. No, slate it. Make sure you have sound for everything, unless it's something that obviously for whatever reason doesn't need sound. Record sound. Even if you don't think you might need it, it's good to have it sometimes. Like we talked about, organize, just talk to me, before you go out and shoot so that we can be on the same page and I know what to expect from you. And then the other thing too is, and this is a question that I ask a lot of filmmakers when I edit films for them, is I try to figure out, like, what kind of editor do you want me to be? Do you want me to be a button pusher editor, or do you want a collaborator? Because those are two different people. I'm happy to push buttons for you and just make, and basically try to hook up my hands to what's in your head and just make whatever you see in your head. But if you want a collaborator, somebody that you're going to bounce ideas off of, and you want me to give my creative, talents to your project to try to make it as good as I can, I want to know that too, because that's going to impact on how I edit for you. The button pusher, I'm just going to give you exactly what you want. Sit behind me, cut here, cut there, cut there. And I've worked with people like that, and that's totally fine. I don't have any problem with that. But, I prefer it if it's more of a collaboration. You go shoot your stuff. Let me build a cut for you on how I see it. And it may not be exactly what you had in your head, but there might be some stuff in there that actually works better. And so just be open to that, and realize that what you had in your head isn't the only way to do things. And it may not always be the best way to do things.
No, and I think that's a really good point. I definitely think you should allow the editor to do the first pass, and then you can come in and critique and then adjust. But it's really hard. I mean, I don't know, the pusher, I would have to be paid very well to want to do that, because I've done that before and it's not fun at all. I mean, you're just waiting till they tell you what to do.
It's not a fun thing, but I mean, every once in a while you get, every once in a while you'll work with somebody who really knows what they're doing and what they want. And they have a vision in their head, and they really just sort of want you to they don't have the ability to sort of push the buttons, for whatever reason. And so they want you to sort of do that for them. And, sometimes that works out. And, maybe you can kind of sneak stuff in every once in a while creatively, that maybe wasn't they were thinking about doing. But yeah, it's like, for me, I don't mind it as much. Obviously I'd prefer it if it's a collaboration, but I just want to know that up front. I want to know I need that expectation set early on of, and a lot of times people tell you, oh no, it's total collaboration. And then you do that first edit and you're like, no, this isn't a collaboration.
Right. Well, I think you kind of brought up a good point. I'm going to spin that in a different way, is that, if you work with somebody who's really brilliant and they want you to just push the buttons because they don't want to edit, you may learn a lot. Like, I don't know, if they have some good stuff coming out, I'd be like, okay, just tell me how you think. And, that might be fun. Like, oh, I'm learning.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, yeah, I think you have to sort of, there are clearly there might be filmmakers that you might work with who just, like, their stuff you're looking at their stuff thinking, holy crap, this is freaking amazing, and yeah, they start telling you kind of what they're thinking. You're like, yeah, no, that's good. But at some point you're going to reach, there needs to be that, they're not going to be looking at it objectively, and that's where you need to sort of step in. It's like, and kind of help guide them on that. But I think anybody that's, as you said, brilliant in that regard, I think, in my estimation, with the exception of like the Stanley Kubricks of the world, most filmmakers, most directors realize the contribution that an editor provides, and, will not maybe always defer to them, in every decision, but will realize that they have a skill set and gifts that they may not possess, and that they might be giving feedback that the director really needs to hear. You know what I mean? And so they'll recognize that and not be that button pusher. And they'll say, like, when you tell that Christopher Nolan, who I think is kind of in a bit in that category, right? Say, look, this scene is working. I understand what you're trying to do, but I think if you tweak this, this, and this, the emotional impact is that much better. I've ever worked with Christopher Nolan, but I have to assume that he's somebody I would guess would be like, you know what, I see what you're saying, and I think you might be right. Let's see what we can do to come up with something. They're not so my way is the best way, and we're going to do it my way. But I agree with you that, as an editor, sometimes, you will work with people who are clearly, maybe above you in their skill set of, and like, I just want to learn from you.
Right.
Yeah. What do you want me to do? Yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it.
Well, thank you so much, Eric, for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. I encourage you to get out there and make a film. Reach out to your local filmmakers group to get involved and connect. Please subscribe to the show if you like it, and follow me on Instagram @TannyMcGarrow. Until we meet again, what's your story?